Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Ted, and with me are my esteemed colleagues,
Dave.
Nate.
And today we're going to talk about Gamemaster tips, world building, and we've done a lot of stuff with the Griffin Gaff side of things, but Nate started a new game, so let's hear about the area of the world that you're working on.
Well, I had just started a campaign. I started really the whole entire campaign by rolling up a villain, which is in another video.
You can check out our other video.
You can check it out. And with this one, basically, I said, well, I need a town that's close to a city, based on my player characters. So I developed everything after I had my characters.
Okay.
I had no plan, no topography, no geography done at all until I had all of my characters down. I've got a ranger. An entertainer, a thief that hangs out with the entertainer, so they're kind of steely, cheaty people.
Okay.
I've got a celestial, an aasimar woman,
Okay.
who is in a city but gets kicked to this not backwater but kind of off the city track. Yeah, so a regular town. And then I have and a half-orc paladin.
Okay.
Yeah, the bard is a tiefling disguised as a tiefling.
Huh?
He's got, you know how if you have for Halloween those arrows that have the bar on the top.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he uses his disguise kit to make it look like he's kind of like a jester in a way. So he's a bard, but he also has that kind of weird flair. He's dressed up as a race that's not really that liked. So
he's pretending to be a tiefling,
but he's actually a tiefling.
But yeah, so he makes his horns look fake, like they're a little, part of it, one's longer than the other, askew kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
And
So he's got caps on his horns.
he puts paint. He put paints on himself. He's got some yarn here or there.
I'm a tiefling masquerading as a tiefling.
Exactly.
It's hysterical.
All right, so let's go over the background, class, and race in a way that people can understand now, because you kind of blurred everything together. I have no idea what's in your game.
Okay.
Okay, so you got a ranger. So
I've got a ranger, half elf,
Okay.
Half elven ranger with what background?
outcast.
Okay.
Outcast? Whatever the wanderer
Outlander.
kind of. Yeah,
Outlander.
Outlander, not outcast. It's outcast is negative. Though. Yeah, Outlander. I've got a aasimar noblewoman.
And she's a sorceress.
And she's a sorceress. And I changed her draconic ancestry, that path. I changed it to celestial ancestry. Works the same exact way, except it's radiant and divine protection, as her armor class is divine protection, and her breath weapon is just going to be radiant eye beams or a blast of radiance from her hand or something.
Okay.
So, and then she's going to have angel wings rather than draconic wings
when she gets there.
Okay.
So that's I just kind of rescanned
So
sorceress.
none of the mechanics have really changed. Just
No.
Okay.
Just
right,
she
cool.
doesn't have scales on her body. She kind of has a glow. She's got white hair when all of her family has black and dark red brunette kind of look.
And that's
So-
why she got thrown out of the city.
Yeah, so she's kind of
You're
just
too pretty
off.
to be here with us.
You're well, the she's from a long lineage in that region, and it's known that they have that kind of genetic throwback every once in a while.
There's a solar in the woodpile somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and because between strategic marriages and other things like that, every once in a while, the two little streams become a river, and that river.
I just
is
love the fact
Aasimar.
that the aasimar is the get out of here. You're not.
I know,
human,
you
you're
got banned.
aasimar.
You're gorgeous, but you're a little too woo here. So the court as Azoria, they're mostly human. Every other race is really a guest there in a sense. So it's a human capital in a way in this region, and so everybody at court, all the high nobles are human.
Let's go back to that, but real quick. Okay, so that's two of them, right?
So
Okay,
then
that's
we
two
got
of them.
Then you got a
Yeah.
tiefling bard.
So I have a tiefling bard,
Entertainer background?
entertainer, yes,
Okay.
All right, so that's 3.
and I have a halfling rogue, the Lightfoot.
Okay.
Is he
So-
criminal or
Criminal.
Is he, okay.
Of course.
Yeah.
All halflings are criminals.
Criminal or
And
urchin.
she plays like a rogue all the time in Castle Ravenloft and all the 4E. They've had some experience with 4E board games, but not any kind of dice.
So that's
rolling.
4, right? We need one more. The paladin, the half-orc
Paladin, half-orc paladin. She was a bandit at birth on the doorsteps of a church, so she's actually an acolyte background.
Okay.
Okay.
And she's a paladin, so she kind of was raised in by a half elf, Alara, and Alara the half elf is actually of the goddess of love and beauty.
Okay.
Which I couldn't remember our Griffin Gaff one, so I was like, you know what? They've got different names in different regions. You can just go with it. It's like nicknames, you know. So whatever the goddess of love and beauty and elfiness in our world is normally called, like the high name, there's like nicknames for
Yeah,
her.
we've been
So-
pretty
That's
light on
fine.
the deities
Yeah.
anyways
Yeah.
as of now. So,
All right. So before
So
we go
she's
in-
an acolyte of that deity, and she's a paladin of that deity. She's going to go Oath of Ancients.
I want to throw something out there real quick.
Okay.
You mentioned this aasimar, and she gets kind of shunned. You should definitely do a secret in her background and the family lineage that is negative, and that's why they kind of send these people away that she doesn't know about, and you can thread it into the storyline later.
No,
Do you like that?
The thing I was gonna mention on it's totally off topic, but the way I heard it, you have 5 players at the table,
Yeah.
and 3 of them are female.
Yes.
Wow,
With
that's,
the DM, it's a 50-50 split, which I don't think has ever happened in any game I've ever been in.
I've gamed with groups that have have females at the table, but it's never been anywhere close to an equal number. That's pretty crazy.
It's rare for I've heard legends and myths of this thing that happens. It just hasn't happened in our
Equality
where we're
between the
Yeah.
genders at the table.
And
That's pretty awesome.
One of the first time gamers, that was female, quote, D&D, where have you been all my life? Was what she said at the end of the session. I was like, all right.
Did you get that on camera?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it's in the mix. Yeah, I'm sure it's in the mix. But I was like, oh, this is really great. I had like a DM high after this because they're all very energetic. Several of them are entertainers, artists, and like what they do, not when they're at the table.
Right.
So
Yeah,
like
the
everybody's
creative
high,
types,
have
yeah.
got that creative, high energy types.
And to you nerdarchists out there, Nate's going to get that gameplay video up as soon as he can.
Yeah, as soon as I figure out how the video and the audio sync, that's for some reason it's out of sync. But I'm getting there. So the campaign, that's kind of like I took those characters and I said, where am I going to stick them? And that's how I got started.
So you said, all right, well, let's get far enough away from an established area of Griffin Gaff, and you picked 300 monks.
Yes, established.
Yeah, the Griffin Gaff and a little. It's got a Greyhawkian feel right now. There's the Griffin Gaff and however far Ted takes us. So I'm about 300 miles away because that would be a long distance. Because that's straight line.
Right.
That's not trails and around mountains and lakes and all that kind of regional hecticness or
Great
like
walls of ice as need be.
areas where you don't hang out because it's infested with terrible things or a haunted forest. So that's a straight line, like as the dragon flies.
Okay.
So you have a city so far.
Yeah. So I have a city and I have a town and I have the mention of a port city. So I've also know that it's at least on a big river. It may be on the ocean, so it might be a bay or the sea or a sea. So as of right now, I have a port
I
city.
also have the mention of a port city somewhere. So.
It's important, because then it kind of gives them an idea. Because where we are, we're like, well, we're this far away from the shore and we're this far away from the major city. That's kind of how I located it for us. So in the game,
You got to know where your beach house is.
Exactly. So they're about 60 miles away from the beach house property area, the port city, and that's important because there used to be Way Station, and now it's just Stationton because it's an actual town rather than just simply a stopping point that had an old inn, like kind of like a barracks, to go from the port city to a stopping point. So they have like the merchants would have a night in the woods, and then they'd have a night at this inn or barracks, and then they'd have a night in the woods, and then they'd be at Azoria.
Okay.
So and
essentially-
Azoria was built on mines and other things of that nature. So they were built on resources, and started out as a mining town, and then flourished into like an ancient mining town, like 1,000 years ago, and then flourished into.
So
a
is
city.
there still an active mine?
Yes, there's still an active mine, but it's further into the mountains. So now they travel from Azoria, which is like where all the craftsmen are and
Right.
all the specialized skill
So
people and
is it-
armorers, and then they travel up into the mountains.
Is it ore? Is it jewels? Is it gold? What is
All kinds of goodies in that mine.
Okay, so it's
Because the mines. Oh, well, go ahead. Right.
no, go ahead.
All right, because the mines will eventually. I mean, they aren't yet. They're far enough away, but in that mountain range, it's the Moridanes, Cairn Mountain region.
Okay.
So, or Cairn Mountain region. And the Moraddanes are actually an ancient Dwarven civilization that about 500 years ago stopped releasing magic items to the populace. So they were master craftsmen, magic creators, like item creators, and they would go all over the place and distribute these through, exchange and, Dwarven merchant stuff. So the merchant circuit also dealt with them as well. So there's a really old worn trail that actually leads from Stationton towards their original place. So through the mountain range.
So now, is it that the dwarves no longer can make magic items, or they just don't give them out anymore?
It has to do with a lot of plot that I'm working with the villains. So basically, I don't want to get into that, but the dwarves don't interact with the outside world anymore. Mm-hmm. So the outside world is kind of dark on what's actually going on with them. But the dwarves are still there, just not necessarily how they used to be.
Because I must say, as a DM, I'm totally against anyone that's just churning out magic items.
Oh, I mean, so 500 years ago, they were producing items, not like 3.5 producing items, but they were known. I mean, you only have to toss out a magic sword here and again to be known for this is where this came from. Mm-hmm. And it's got everything's in Dwarven, so they're actually going to find a magic item that the Moraddanes made at this little hub that I had talked about in the other section.
So without actually giving up any campaign secrets, what is the dwarves' relation with this whole mine? Because typically, stereotypically,
the dwarves
would be the ones
the mine.
Would be the ones
well,
in the mine.
It's an entire mountain range, and it's a large mountain range.
Okay.
That goes to the sea, and normally dwarves will be all over that, but that would mean that there must have been something better where they decided to make their home.
Okay.
And 500 years, the mine is, though old, wasn't worthwhile to them, or it was in a region that was considered unstable. Whatever reasons, humans decided it was a good idea, and dwarves decided it wasn't. So okay. I'm going to leave the mystery up to, I'm going to leave the deductive reasoning up to you.
Dude, it's
I'm sure those mines are going to collapse and kill all those humans, because if a dwarf isn't mining it, there's a really good reason.
Yeah, maybe since the mines are part of the undertown of Azoria, maybe a section of the city might collapse due to instability or sinkholes or something. That's not something I have directly planned, but it's something that
they're going to awaken smog.
I just look at it, it's here you've got this vein that apparently has been rich for 500 years in a human culture.
The city itself is 1,000 years old. Yeah, the beginning outpost mine.
So for a dwarf who actually lives for hundreds of years, I just find it not to discount you, but it's why wouldn't the dwarves be there?
Yeah, there might be a dwarf whose parents would have remembered the humans coming. I mean, the parents would be dead now, obviously, but a really old dwarf may remember tales of his parents talking about the humans coming.
Right.
It's not why wouldn't they. You should be asking the question, because that's a negative question. I've done something wrong.
I know your question.
Why didn't they do that? What's the reason why they didn't?
So
not that there could not be a reason, or there might be a reason, but there is a reason why they didn't do it.
And that's fine. and the fact that you have that question is great. And there's campaign secrets linked up with it, so we can't share that with you guys now.
Next year we can talk about what's going on.
Once it comes out in the campaign that you're in, then we can get into furthering that.
Yeah. So I developed. Go ahead.
Geography. How much have you developed? Obviously you've got this barrier of, okay, well, if I've got 300 miles, what would I have out to 150 miles, circular that you have to play with before you say, well, am I encroaching on this other area?
I wish I had drawn a map for this. But
let's say, because we don't have a map for anything else.
Let's say at the south point, the cardinal point
theater
south.
of the mind, people.
Yeah, theater of the mind.
As long as you have an idea of what you're doing, you don't need that map. Eventually, we're going to make that resource as we continue to develop Griffin Gaff, and its other areas. We don't even have a overarching campaign name yet. And it's not important if you keep your game, local and build out from there, you can get a much more rich world and build as you need. So
Okay. So, thanks for that disclaimer on not having a map. So at the south, the cardinal point south, let's say there's the port city, Dresden, and then you have, kind of like a circle of mountains and river, and then you have, let's say east, you have the Moridane's headquarters somewhere in the mountain region is the kind of the estimated place where the trail from way station to the center of that mountain range where it goes. So you have that, and then north of that, so in the middle you'd have the way station, Stationton. And then north of that you have about 50-60 miles you have Azoria. So that's kind of the part that I've figured out so far. And to the west, I want to put some kind of chaos issue, like magic problem, but I want to talk with you guys more about that before I kind of show these people our like campaign feature and do it incorrectly. So I was like,
I don't know.
It's not coming up yet.
It's chaos. How can you do it incorrectly? I mean, you could even do a whole. I mean, it's actually in the Warhammer where they have something called the Chaos Waste, but you could do something similar to that where it's a region that's already rife with chaos, and it could be that in your area, like we're just recently introducing chaos into Griffin Gap, but that doesn't mean. But we're under the impression that there's other places where it's already been existing. It's just new
for
to
a
us.
while, yeah.
Okay, so this could be one of the places where it's been for a while and just kind of doing a little semicircle track, or every once in a while we'll go a little bit off one way or the other. So on the west, people, it's like you don't tend to go there because of that. And they're actually going to be fighting a Nothic. It's like pretty much as soon as we start. They're on watch right now. As soon as they wake up, they're going to be fighting a Nothic because the Nothic has been. All right, the Nothic has been led off the trail of the Chaos Bleed, the Chaos Storm or whatever, to these planar creatures. So that's going and heading towards their direction to munch on some planar creatures that have escaped. So that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to be introducing as well as kind of that weird creature. I feel like ever since you talked about it in the in that one video,
One of the Gamemaster
I was just like,
tips,
I wanted to use
Monster
one
Show.
so bad, and then I'm like, I'm going to use it.
Yeah, I've been meaning to use one. I actually have one in my notes somewhere that he's just never surfaced yet.
Yeah, so that's going to be a realm where they'll hang out. So that'll kind of be like a normal. I mean, it's kind of rough for a first level party, but I think they'll be okay at it. There's 5 of them.
That might be a deadly encounter. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, the 450 XP, they're kind of rough. I think they're challenge rating too. So
They are.
So this is what's called part of the merchant circuit. So there's actually going to be like a string of other places around this kind of blah area to the west that go from the port city to other
Going
places.
back to Stationton, do they hold allegiance to one of the other cities?
They're kind of dual funded in a way by both. Originally, they were the port city said, well, we need a place to stop on our way to other places, and there's actually like a guild that takes care of the whole merchant circuit. So the ranger, he doesn't know it, but his group of guys are all part of the they're not like officially in the guild, but they're in a way compensated by the merchant circuit guild.
I would imagine that whoever had that central inn has got to be a big figure in Stationton and pretty affluent by this point in time, because if you've got people coming, both directions, and that inn was apparently got enough use that a whole entire town was built up from it. That particular figure is going to, be like kind of the founder of Stationton and really.
It's not like it just happened recently. He might be like a descendant, or he bought it from somebody, or his great grandfather bought it from somebody and kept it. This is like there's.
What size is the town? Let's start there.
Oh, it's like it's considered a small town, but not like a backwater small town. Like kind of. people could make a 2-day trip to this place. So if they wanted to hike into the mountains or do some kind of weird weekend warrior kind of thing, or whatever purpose they traveling from one to the other, the port city to Azoria, which is the kind of the capital in that area. So if you travel by boat, you're going to travel through Stationton. So it's not like a rundown little town, but it's also not like a whole bunch. It's not super urbanized.
So the town, right? So does the actual merchant guild have a claim to the town? Do they have the rights to it? Because there's a town, right? They're going to pay taxes. Someone's going to want it. Is it Azoria or is it what is it? What's the port city?
Dresden.
One of them is going to want the tax. Both want the taxes, but only one of them is probably going to get them.
Yeah. Well, part of it's kind of, it's like how the port authority controls bridges and upkeeps bridges and does stuff with the bridges. It's kind of that same principle that this merchant guild long ago got the rights basically to, if they want to, and still put a tariff in. But most of the parts of the merchant circuit are prosperous enough and also populated enough that they have their own commerce going on. So it's not simply like, oh, you're just a town that has nothing to offer except a place to lay down for the night. There's other things. There's entertainment. There's other things.
Yeah, but when you're talking cities and kingdoms, that's not really relevant, because someone's gonna be like, oh, but you need our protection.
Oh well,
so they're gonna want to stake a claim.
Basically, there's in that way, there's someone who owns the merchant circuit.
Yeah.
That isn't the cities, because the cities all benefit from it, and it's an old enough contractual arrangement that it's not like, oh, I'm a giant city and I'm saying that you work for me.
Well, no, my point is the merchant guild would have to be really powerful in its own right to be able to say, no, we got this. And the city, for the cities to be okay with it.
Well, when you're formed, when Azoria is still a mining town, rather than just a mining camp, but an actual like town building up around it, when you start to basically have arrangements and have agreements that date back.
But cities
500-600 years.
Cities tend to have things like a watch and armies.
Oh yeah, they do. Well, it's not like they control the road. It's not like they can say, "City, you're not allowed on our road." It's not like they have stations everywhere.
So my point is, it's a plot point for political intrigue.
Oh yeah, there can be a shift of power. That's true.
And also power struggles, between the two cities and the merchant guild. So something has to anchor that. Like they may be, so they need to have political power in order to maintain the rights to what they have. It's not enough to start it and own it. You have to be able to keep it. And when you're talking, in civilizations based off, more or less a medieval feudal type system, at the end of the day, the real thing that's going to matter is actual power. However you amass it, it isn't really all that relevant. But who has it now? And
then I guess what I would say is, because Azoria is the first one to benefit from the roads being upkept and from them being clean of bandits, they're kind of the front runners of ensuring the merchant circuit guild stays in power, because and it's kind of like, it's misleading. Like, let's say, so Azoria is probably really in charge, but it's kind of like, if they wanted to do something to the other cities, the merchant guild would be their like cat's paw kind of thing for that. So if you had somebody who wanted to manipulate politics in that way, I mean, they already kind of have a beneficial relationship. They're the first stop, and they're really affluent. So some merchants don't go beyond them.
You see, I would say, like, okay, so that may be true for ruler 1, 2, 3, and 4, but ruler 5 might go, I don't even need these guys anymore. Do it myself.
And that could be. So far, that has not happened.
So, but what I'm saying is it creates an interesting point for a plot.
Oh yeah, you can definitely develop something through it.
Yeah. So like in D&D and RPGs in general, I think the most interesting things are going to come from asking questions and filling in those voids.
Right.
And,
yes, that's true.
Why is it like that? And then later on, that's going to be something for the players to interact with. Maybe they don't even think about it at the time, but as it comes along, and it offers up, a different kind of game. than just killing and fighting monsters.
Absolutely.
When you can introduce these political intrigues.
Yeah, currently right now they're not. I mean, they'll feel it probably with when they travel from one place to the other, because there'll be other. I mean, at the like first day stop on each one of these sections, there is some. They'll still meet the merchant guild, the merchant circuit guild, but until those points, they're not. It's like it's something the ranger knows about.
Right.
And he's actually talked with them.
So,
because
like,
he's one of their informants. He just doesn't
does the guild
understand that he
maintain a
is.
standing army?
A standing army in the sense of the same way a city has city guards, but doesn't have an army. It would be different. So they're more city guard than army.
Right. So they might have like
So in that sense, if they said we're leaving the merchant circuit and we're going to go fight something,
like
they could gather together probably 1,000 people. So that's a lot. That's a lot of people on this merchant circuit.
No, not people, but soldiers. People trained.
Well,
for
people
war.
that are These aren't just guys that are like security guards without
Right.
guns. These are something beyond that.
Okay, so
They're all
but
have
th-
some,
see,
they have
that's
martial
my
training.
point, right? That's my point. 1,000 compared to an army that can, or a city that can raise an army of 20,000.
Oh,
is nothing. So that's my point. Like, and the real key to holding and maintaining power in this kind of a system really is
Numbers.
is the might of is your strength of arms. That's why I bring it up. So that creates interesting
Or
point plots. Well, money's not enough because an army can come in and take your money.
Oh, this is true, but it's not like they're standalone. If anybody actually attacked the merchant circuit guild, other cities that have a vested interest in getting the goods from the port city or getting the goods from inland that come on the merchant circuit, that's going to be an issue to them. So anybody that disrupts the trade,
Right, they're using their political capital and political power.
so it's not like
muscle to
one person
influence it,
saying,
yeah.
I'm going to push all these merchant guys around. It's, I'm going to push all these merchant guys around and then deal with 7 cities being pissed at me that all have standing armies.
Right.
So it's kind of like, well, the first person to grab the cookie gets the cookie, but might get his hand chopped off.
Well, that's my point. Like, how does it all play out? So that's
Well, since I've only have those 2 cities in this one town planned out so far, I don't have much on the political intrigue spectrum. So, and it's also beneficial. They only have to deal with town politics.
right. But here's
Currently.
the thing: like, part of this series, part of Gamemaster Tips world building, is when we discuss this stuff. It's a way to help you build your world and add things and things to think about.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's gotten me a lot of things to think about, and also with that idea of, well, I can't really have much political intrigue for that whole thing, which sounds like a good series of events to occur, but I can't have that whole political intrigue right without developing a few more of the towns on the circuit.
It's not true. You think small, microcosm, and then you build out. So when I say that might just be one NPC from the Merchants Guild that interacts with your players.
Then that'll be their experience. With
That'll
the
be their
merchant
experience, right? And that's where they're
That's true.
going to get their information. So, like, do you really need to know what the other 5 cities are? No, not really. No, you only need to know his motivation and why he's trying to manipulate the players or get them to do something, or what his vested interest is in them. And then from there, you can expand out.
Yeah, that's a lot less intimidating than going back and developing a whole.
I've run
Kind
5-6 sessions, out of Griffin Gaff, and the only thing we've talked about is there's 2 forests, a couple mountain ranges, and there's elves, dwarves, and orcs that all live within several days proximity. So it's like you can do a lot with just a small area, and as you need something else, well, stretch out a little bit and put it in there. As you need something, let's put it in there.
Yeah, that's kind of why I went with like the cardinal directions, what's going on in the areas. I made up the Moradanes because I wanted a cool name for the hammer. Well, that's what it's called. It's actually a long story, but it does bludgeon damage, and when it strikes, it sounds like hitting a gong, not like an obnoxious gong, but like that you obviously like a smithy hammer against something. Metal.
That's just weird.
Pretty cool.
Well, it's called the hammer.
It's called the hammer.
And it's a sword.
And it's a sword.
I'm going to cut you with bludgeoning. Sort of. That's definitely an interesting quirk for it.
Yeah, it's definitely two quirks on that one.
Yeah. But that's the beauty of 5th edition. It gives you permission to do that. It's got charts and tables for it. And one of those rolls is roll twice. Ignore this. So and it also is a cool place for inspiration because I don't think those are on the chart. You made them up, and they're cool.
So I ended up making the Moordanes because I was like, well, dwarves made this. What dwarves are they, and are they still around? And that's how I started answering those questions, just simply because I had thought up a magic item.
This DMG, this freaking book right here is a friggin' idea factory.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I have ideas for things that I'm going to be implementing for my game because I did give out a magic item, and like you, I rolled up some stuff and go, you know what? And I rolled some and picked some, and I was like, this stuff ties together, it works, and ooh, what happens because they have this? Oh, someone's not going to be happy.
It's got extra creepiness.
Maybe. Extra creepiness is not going to be happy.
For this magic, I happened to roll up that it was made by dwarves and that it made that like gong sound, that loud noise when it hits something. And I was like, well, I don't really feel like a sword should do that.
What are they called?
A sword, huh?
What are they called? The Moradane?
Moradane.
I like the sound of that. The sword, the hammer of Moradane, which is actually a sword. What?
So I have to think up more history on it.
You sure it wasn't made by a gnome?
Maybe it was.
A shorter, happier dwarf made this. He's a cousin of mine.
Shorter, happier, less strong.
Maybe one day a gnome decided to pull a prank and went into the smithy, cranked it out.
With some gobelos.
Yeah,
maybe.
He mashed up some magic items into dust, and
you're gonna have to figure out the NPC that made that.
Yeah,
and maybe like there's a whole like line of weird magic items.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That this guy's made.
And it could be a gnome that disguised himself as a dwarf and was in the Moradane factory. Or it could be, it's off in the mountains.
It could be, or just a crazy dwarf.
Oh yeah, or a crazy dwarf.
I like a dwarf that's a bit off.
Yeah,
like maybe there's a gnome in the woodpile somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
or gnomish blood. Maybe there's some kind of
So I think this is
interbreeding going on.
I think this is a great sneak peek into your campaign that you're working on. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's a ton more we could talk about. I think we should wrap this one up here, and we'll come back to it in the future. But in the meantime, listen, guys, comment below. Let us know what you think. If you got some ideas for Nate's World, or there's things you like or don't like, you can put them there and share them with us.
And if you got some insight or just inspiration from this, let us know what you've been thinking about based on what you saw in the video.
Pretty much. So like, comment, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out on Twitter.
You can also join us on the conversation on Reddit.
So until next time,
stay
nerdy.
nerdy.